And with the development of lamps and floor lamps and desk lamps, the newest versions are literally like light boxes. They're dimmable. You can take these lights and these floor lamps and desk lamps, and you can change them from a low of 30 watts equivalent light to 300. They're like a light box if you need them. But the real impact is that they will help things like reading, eye strain. So they not only have medical benefits, but they have very physical benefits to these. But the point, and I'll kind of get into that with artificial light, but basically the game is that you have that you have ways of supplanting the lack of sunlight anywhere in your house.
So, for example, people can be outside when there's sunlight. They don't have to be like baking in the sun. They can just be sitting outside in a chair or laying down, etc. They don't have to be baking. They just have to be in the sun.
As long as sun is entering your eyes and some of it hitting your body, but sunlight bounces off of sidewalks, walls. It bounces, light bounces. And as long as you're not in the box, you don't. As long as you're outside, you have to be outside of your home, your house, your automobile with the windows rolled up, your glasses, your contacts, etc. And then you will be able to get your sunlight in. I'd like to have people experience this impact if they would just, when they're in a box, when they're in a house, when they're in an office, if they would just be aware of how they feel, and it's usually not very good, and immediately when going out of a door, when you go outside, if they are aware of how their body feels, the minute they break out of the box and into the sunlight, the body responds like a sponge. Choom! And I just encourage people to experience that a couple of times, because that really drives it home. Lack of sunlight indoors, sunlight outside. Wow, here's the effect on me.
What about in overcast conditions? Years ago, I went to the beach. It was overcast. I was laying down and I got burned. And I thought, how did that happen? I didn't see the sun.
Some forms of UV come through the clouds. Some forms of UV, there's UVA, B, and C. Some of it comes through the clouds and some of it is bounced off of it. So
got it.
Even though you don't have these really good wavelengths that I was telling you, these 1500, you do get some of the ultraviolet that comes through, and that's why you ended up burning.
Is anything about ultraviolet beneficial for us?
It's essential. If sunlight does what I told you, it's that important to the body, then ultraviolet is the most important of all those wavelengths.
When people are, let's say they rent a sun booth and they go into this sun booth to get tans, are they getting UV? What are they getting?
They're getting UV. And sometimes if people are having troubles in the winter, they don't have any full spectrum lights, they don't have any access to UV, then I don't have a problem with them going into a tanning booth for one 20-minute period every 2 weeks as a UV replenishment gas station, so to speak. But if you start doing it daily where you're affecting a tan, then you are getting too much UV.
Why don't people know this?
Because I believe most of the publications are on the ills of UV. I think you can find that anywhere, and then you're encouraged to get sunscreens and so forth to protect yourself. Well, that's a tough media blitz, so to speak, that comes from all sources to bad UV, bad. Yet 30 years ago, UV was used by the medical profession to literally take care of bacteria on the skin. A whole raft of medical things were treated with sun. But then the UV was then stated as, cause of cancer and cataracts. And so we now must get all of our UV away from us. And in doing so, we take the main ingredient of sunlight that we've had for, let's call it millions of years. If UV was truly that bad, then our species wouldn't be here today, because we'd all died out from cancer. We'd all be blind from cataracts if that were the case, but we're not.
I think the sun has gotten a bad rap. For example, there are electromagnetic microwave stations that have blown holes in our ionosphere, allowing in radiation, gamma rays, to hit the Earth. So it happens to be, this is my view anyway, that the sun is just out there, right? So if you're out in the sun is being blamed for all these cancers when there's other things coming in through the air that happen to be there when there's light, because our atmosphere has changed too.
Right. Now the atmosphere, remember I said there was UVA, B, and C?
Yes.
The atmosphere blocks C. That's the only deadly UV part. So when you blow a hole in it, as you said, in the atmosphere, not only are the gamma rays and the other ones coming through, but UVC is allowed to come in.
Right, and that's not the fault of the sun. That's the fault of what many of the black projects are doing to our air.
Yeah, exactly. So UV, and if you boil down a cancer, for instance, we all carry the origins of cancer in our bodies. Why does it activate in some people? And in this particular case, I'm just talking about skin cancers, melanoma and basal cell carcinomas, things like that. Why does that trigger? Why does person 1, 5, and 42 get cancer and the rest don't? It's because of the toxicity condition in your body. It's the foods you eat, the stress you're under, the water you drink, all the exposure to microwaves, the exposure to heavy metals. All of this thing does what? It creates a toxicity condition in the body that is triggered by excessive UV. And so instead of cleaning up the toxicity, we say ban the UV.
That's why I think this is so important, because there's a lot of people that are scared of the sun. It's been said, never put on your skin what you wouldn't eat. And yet we're putting thousands of chemicals on our skin to, quote, protect us from this horrible sun. I just think it's very interesting. Yes.
Basically, my experience has been over 25 years that people who use sunscreen, literally because they're paranoid of the sun, but go out very little in the sun but still wear sunscreen, get cancer. It basically says the ingredients in sunscreen are more cancer-producing than they're cancer-protecting.
Do you put anything on when you go out into the sun?
No, and I live in Hawaii, and I'm in the sun all the time. I basically control the amount of time that I'm in the sun. I go in the morning. I do not spend midday out in the sun. I spend the afternoon in the sun. So I avoid the hottest part of the day. So it's always the old rule, 8 to 10 and 2 to 5 is when you should be in the sun. And I just let the body naturally tan, not from overuse, and so I'm pretty much protected. And it's interesting that people like me, I'm in the light for a lot of years. The originator and the developer of full-spectrum light, John Ott,
I love him. Talk about him.
He lived in Chicago, etc. He discovered the detrimental effects of artificial light on plants primarily and then people, and then found out the advantages of sunlight, and then was the developer of the full spectrum light. And where did he end up before he died? He lived to 93. He moved to Florida. So all people who really, if we're an example of people who dig into light a lot, what happens? We go to the sun. We get the heck out of areas that don't have sun, and if we can't go, then we utilize the recommendations of full spectrum light as a replacement for it.